Welcome to this preview for Windows on the World, which goes out live every Sunday at windowsontheworld.net on the live shows page. Our shows also end up on Odyssey and they originate on Spreaker, which is again on the live shows page at windowsontheworld.net. So do subscribe to us on Spreaker and Odyssey. We use YouTube merely for advertising our shows. Tonight, we've got a great one for you about information warfare and the pitfalls which befall many people. I've covered this a lot over the years, and ramping up of the controlling of the narrative has never been at such a fever pitch. We've got this online harms bill coming out, and that basically says that anything which goes against the interests of national security can be shut down. I'm summarizing there. That's basically what it's about. It means that information which is outside the controlled narrative will actually no longer be allowed and can be considered a threat to national security. Now, where does that cross over? Where does that get into the framing of patsies, the discrediting of so-called alternative media? Now, that's another thing we're going to get into. The three different types of media. You've got basically the mainstream propaganda narrative, then you've got the gatekeepers in the middle, then you've got this thing called the alternative media, which contains an awful lot of information, which is why we've stayed outside all three. And that is a very important point, because putting out just factual information is something most people don't want to hear. They want whistles and bells on it, and they want hopium and a bit of new age BS, but we don't do any of that. We expose a lot of that. So this is what we're going to get into tonight. And also, I'm going to be looking back at some recordings we did of an interview of someone in Parliament Square about 10 years ago. It was passed on to me. Spent a lot of time looking at these protests and how they were actually being steered, because all protests are steered, especially in the UK. And this is something that I covered a lot over the years. And what's interesting about it is, if you actually do this, a lot of people have no interest in it whatsoever. They have no interest in how they're being steered, but they're very quick to jump on bandwagons when they are being steered by other people. And then if you don't go along with these kind of newly promoted, say, whistleblowers or these new gurus who come on the scene, then of course you're negative or you're a shill. And we're going to be talking about that tonight, because this is something which is very interesting, but it leads into something more serious. So online defamation is very common. However, the people who engage in online defamation are only doing exactly what the intelligence services are doing themselves. So in other words, that's where it crosses over. We have this crossover of public and private, and we have these fringes of people who are ambiguous as to what they're actually doing. We're going to go into that because it's all about this information warfare. And I think it's a very fascinating subject, because I believe, and what we've been saying over the past few weeks and the past few years has indeed unfortunately come true, that there are going to be more people set up, more patsies. We're going to see more terror events, so-called terror events, which I believe, and my research has shown, has been orchestrated and is being orchestrated for the agenda. Basically, the Sustainable Development Goals, because that's really what this is all about, a global governance system, and countries are merely part of an operating system now. And it depends which part of the operating system you are in. The UK's in a very ramped up one, and we're going to be looking at that. I've obviously done a lot of research over the years into how things are steered. We've done loads of stuff about the Occupy protests, how they were steered, and we did undercover sort of looking at it really, basically as outsiders, which you've got to do. And you start observing and looking who's doing what, and then you find out who they are. Now, this is a very important thing, because I do believe that small groups working amongst themselves can actually interrupt a lot of this information warfare, because let's face it, the intelligence services are actually controlling the narrative mostly. But if they can be exposed for what they're doing, then that is a bit of a coup. And this was something that came up with this interview that I'd watched. It was somebody who'd basically been targeted by the UK security services, MI5, and private security. And he was explaining how if people had been victims of this, if they'd been victims of this, would come forward, then they could form a kind of cell which would put pressure on those agencies. Now, I think we're a bit way beyond that, but I still think that this is a very big way forward to actually put something into the information war. So in other words, just reverse what the subversives are doing, because the subversives use very dirty tactics. I mean, we've covered this. It doesn't really matter whether it's your local council doing it. I've said this over and over again, or these sort of high level government agencies. They all do the same thing. They use the same techniques. Once you know those techniques, then you're wise to them. So I'm really going to get into that tonight. And this Tuesday, going to be doing a live stream about 9:30 p.m. UK time. We're going to be continuing with what we've actually got into tonight. So I've got quite a lot to get through in this show. Please join us every week, 9:30 p.m. on windowsontheworld.net. Also, check out our Odyssey channel. All the links to this are on the homepage at windowsontheworld.net. Let's just have a look what could be in the chat here. Do you think the UK? Yes, of course, the UK is going to be locked down, isn't it? I think we're already talking about that. And the UK is going about 1,000 miles an hour now. I mean, what they do is they tighten up, then they let you go for a bit, then they tighten up harder. And that's what's happening now. We're in the third act. And of course, this is getting to the point of absurdity and people are getting sick of it. However, they're still being controlled by the media. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight, really, in a different kind of way. Always like to put a different kind of perspective on things, because a lot of this is about being flexible with the way that you deal with what you're doing. Yeah. My God, a real person telling the truth, rare nowadays. Well, the thing is, I've always just been an investigative type journalist. I've never been part of any groups. I've always found groups problematic. However, that doesn't mean that I won't endorse other people's work or go and do talks, which is what I used to do. But I've found that for some reason, when I put stuff out, and this really puzzled me early on, I could never work it out. My stuff was demonized, I was targeted, and a lot happened. And I think the main reason is if you act in a journalistic way with balanced information and evidence, that is a real problem for the people who are trying to control the narrative. And that narrative is controlled by private corporations. It's controlled through the intelligence agencies of the UK and the world. But also, you've got to remember that the global governance structure, which is basically under this UN system, and the UN have said that they want to control the whole narrative of news worldwide. So everything's coming together with this online harms bill, which could shut down everything that people like. Anything alternative, basically anything alternative can be shut down, not just what we're doing. I thought it was Holly from Wedgwood. I mean, I don't know why people put comments like that, really, because it shows, Mike, that you're basically a bit vacuous and you watch TV, because people who actually engage with our show don't watch TV. TV's for numbskulls. So if you're going on about TV shows, that's not very interesting. Let's see what else is going on. Yeah. We are at the precipice of a brave new normal. Yeah, we are actually, definitely. Yes. Do you cover the fraud of the January 6th committee in the States witch hunt, basically? Well, actually, I try and keep ahead of what's going on in the States, and I do get reports from people over there. I tend to put it into a larger framed perspective. I would, however, like to concentrate on certain aspects of what's going on there. But what I try and do is frame it in this perspective where it can be seen as the bigger narrative. But of course, it's extremely important. Malcolm could be a millionaire by now, Mark, if he was on the ball. Well, the thing is, Common Law Malcolm is this character I invented because there's people who should know better, who are over 12 years old, who are going into court making absolute fools of themselves and talking about common law when they know nothing about it. And they're relating it to all other law as though common law is not incorporated into all systems of law, which it is. And common law, Malcolm, is this idiot who goes around basically losing and getting his car clamped every 5 minutes and really reversing the situation in his own mind to think that he's winning. And that is a big part of this information war. There's loads of people like that. I think there was something I saw this week, some ex-copper, he says, we are winning, when he clearly isn't. I mean, this is another thing we're going to be covering. These people who come up who are alleged whistleblowers, a lot of them over the years, and nothing's really happened because there's actually agencies that control whistleblowers anyway. So if you're a whistleblower and you've come from, say, the police or the National Health, you actually cannot be a whistleblower. You have to go through these organizations. So you have to be a complete renegade. And complete renegades, I don't know whether you knew this, but you probably do, are always shut down. And sometimes horrible things happen to them. There have been a few police over the years who've done this, who've uncovered a lot of corruption. Corruption's a generalized word, of course, but those people are never heard from again. They are shut out by all the media because it's against the national interest, national security. Yes, that's great. Yeah, Malcolm would be a millionaire if he was on the ball. Well, the thing is that he is representative of a certain sector of people who are so arrogant they think what they're doing is going to work, and of course it isn't. So, yeah, I was talking about that this week, and you can join us actually because we do talk about this in our Discord server. We have a Discord server and we get into some really fun conversation on there, and people post very good stuff. So if you're sick of all this social media nonsense and these gatekept groups with all this infiltration and nonsense, which I've noticed this week and I'm going to report on, because it is very interesting that you post an article which is all factual, all researched, and a load of defamation starts out of nowhere. You get attacked from about 3 or 4 different sources. And this has always been the case. But what I'm getting into tonight is how you can do something about it, because over the years, there have been successes against this sort of stuff. And if you go back onto the website, it's quite incredible. I mean, I brought some court cases, I won them. You just have to be persistent. I'm talking generally about the way that the narrative is being controlled here, how it all sort of goes together. So we're going to be talking about that tonight, 9:30 p.m. I better get off because I've got a few things to prepare. But yeah, join us on those platforms. Go to windowsontheworld.net. On the homepage are all the links you need to find our stuff, including the full archive and loads of articles which have got shows in them and lots of information which all relates to the other information on there. Then you can go to the live shows page and you can then listen to our whole show archive. So have a look at that. And yes, do join me this Sunday and every Sunday at 9:30 p.m. UK time at windowsontheworld.net live shows. We don't put much on YouTube anymore. Okay, thanks a lot, everyone. Cheers. Hang on, yeah. Let me just see if there's any more. Yes, I know you work, Mark. I like what you do. Thanks. Well, has Piers Corbyn been arrested again? I didn't know, but I'm sure he's having a cup of tea at the police station and he's fine. Okay, right. I'll see you all on the show. Thanks a lot, everybody.